Hello, hello. What? Another week, another coding workshop, Code on Scroll. Today we have a very lovely guest, Jessica from Zero X. I'm not going to introduce her because that is her job. But quick overview. Hi, I'm Emily. I lead DevRel here at Scroll, but I don't do anything other than highlight the super cool tools that help build really complex and robust applications because that's my job is to make Zero X stand out. So I'm going to stop rambling. And Jessica, I'll let you take it away. Yeah, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Zero X.
Yeah, thanks again. Thanks, Emily. Thanks for having me on. Honestly, it's kind of crazy that we haven't had a live stream together. I don't know if people know the context, but maybe we'll save that for the end. So yeah, thanks for having me on. I lead DevRel at ZeroX. What we do at ZeroX is we create a suite of developer tools that help any application be able to embed swapping capabilities into their application. So we do this thing called aggregation. So there's this whole body of liquidity out there, and to be able to interact in Web3, you're going to need to be able to interact with tokens. So we think at the end of the day, be able to easily find the token liquidity that you need, be able to swap into what you need, and then do the transactions that you need to do down the line is super important. So we try to make that super easy by building this set of developer tooling to help enable that swapping capability.
Cool, cool. I guess maybe it would be good to just like dive into a little bit of how it works for the devs out there.
Yeah, um, that's a good starting point. So actually, I'm going to quickly share our developer docs because I think there's some um, interesting diagrams here. So yeah, if you take a look at xerox.org/docs, this is what I'm looking into right now. So what I mentioned ahead of time was that what we do is called DEX liquidity aggregation. So like, why is this important? So in this decentralized world, there's just so many pockets of liquidity, right? So even on one chain, you have a number of different dexes. There's even private market makers. So, and not every single pool that you are accessing has all the tokens. Every day, every hour, honestly, there's probably like a new token coming up, but that token doesn't exist in every single pool. So it's this problem of being able to find where these pockets of liquidity are, and also be able to do the best routing. So you can think of it like a Google Flights. So there's a number of different sources out there. But rather than you going one by one, so instead of like you going to Uniswap, going to Curve, going to Banker, like why not just go to one stop shop, and we'll do the heavy lifting of we look through all these pools, do the routing, and be able to find that best price for you in one quote. So this is kind of a diagram version of it. We actually, if you go to our consumer product called matcha.xyz, you can easily actually use 0x under the hood there.
Ooh. Oh, I like this ELI5. It's very
Oh yeah,
cute and very well, I can't read it right now. It's too small on my screen.
I see.
But I'm gonna pretend that I read it beforehand and say it's super helpful, which I imagine it is. The docs are really nice. Super clean. Yeah, I mean, I think like Zero X is it feels to me like very translatable. I think the Google Flights kind of analogy really clarified what it looks like. I don't know if you want to talk more about the tech stack, I guess, since you just showed it on the documentation, but I think for those out there um, trying to latch on to Zero X, it would be good to highlight some IRL use cases, what has been
Mhm.
I guess it's a piece of infrastructure for like consumers, right? Like when do we know we're using Zero X? Do we know? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's one of the like for me, I love working on the infra layer because it's one of those pieces where it just works in the back, and a lot of people are interacting with it, and you might know, you might not know. So I think it's a really powerful place to be. So what I have on screen right now is a simple diagram of like the different tech, like a breakdown of the tech stack. So you're asking like what are the different applications that are built on 0x? You probably use MetaMask or Rainbow Wallet, Matcha, Coinbase Wallet, Robinhood Wallet, Brave, Zapper, Zerion. All these projects are, every time you're going in and trying to make a swap, it's going to be using 0x on the back to find the route for the quote for you. So that's this middle layer here. And then down at the bottom, we have listed here 0x settler. So this is our open source smart contract. So the way that our tech stack works is we provide the developer API that these front-end apps can tap into. But at the end of the day, the trades are going through this smart contract. So I'm going to jump down to this other diagram here. So there's this little GIF here, like what's actually happening, right? So at a very high level, you're having this order created. So this order in which, like, as you going into your wallet and like, I want to swap ETH for USDC. And so you place this order, and then on the other end, there's some entity. So it could be a private market maker. It could be a liquidity pool, such as a Uniswap. And then there's a quote that's provided for you. And so then this order is made. So this maker, once this GIF resets here, this buy order, sell order is made. You as the taker looks it over and says, like, I like this quote. I'm going to sign it. You've probably done that in your wallet before. And then that quote goes off to our smart contract, and it's atomically swapped between the two wallets. So the process is pretty straightforward. You make the order, and then you sign it, and then it goes on chain where the swap of the two tokens is actually happening. And yeah, if we want to take a quick look, I'm going to jump over to matcha.xyz here. I'm going to swap over to my screen here. So Matcha, it's one of the applications that's building on 0x. It's actually built by the 0x team. So it dog foods all the APIs that we're using, new and upcoming. So I think it's a great way to, if you're looking to build, come here for inspiration of what are the best practices of using the API. So here I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so we can easily see. So here I'm going to make a market order. I'm going to go here. So I'm on mainnet. I'm going to do, again, the ETH to USDC swap. So then here, let's just say I'm going to swap 100 ETH. And then, yeah, so that's honestly, so this quote here is what we're providing. So right now, you can actually, and then also a cool thing that we have recently implemented is you can see the route. So what I was talking about with the aggregation, so this is the part I think that's really, really powerful under the hood, is when you make this this price query, like what we're doing is we're looking across all these different sources on mainnet. So right now for this one quote, because it's a pretty big trade, so the trade, rather than just going through one source, the trade actually is best split up into these routes, right? So like 2.5 for Airdrome, 2.5 going through PancakeSwap, Uniswap, Base, etc., Airdrome. So all this is happening without you having to do anything. And we'll see later in the quote how this is shown to you. But under the hood, this is all done for you if you tap into the API. So yeah, so that's a quick high level of like what does 0x look like, as a tech stack, and then also from a user perspective. And I think later in the live stream, I'll walk through the content that's on Scroll's Level Up, and it walks through exactly like how to get this quote, as well as say the next step when the user needs to, like, they like the transaction, they can sign it down the line. So we can actually get all this, pretty straightforward, pretty easy, just using the API.
Very cool. I saw you doing this at first. I was like, damn, is she about to just transfer or like swap 100 ETH in front of us?
Big baller moves. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. But no. Yeah.
I can swap like $4, less than $5 of ETH
Yeah,
like
yeah,
right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good, good. What was I gonna say? Yes, before we jump in, because I know you mentioned the level up content, and that's really the meat of this, like going over how to actually like practically work with 0x. I know at the beginning you mentioned like swaps and gasless. I wanted to know a little bit about like what's the difference between the two. Um,
Yeah. So 0x provides currently two types of APIs. So there's the swap, and also there is construction going on. They're literally building a house across the street. So every morning we can wake up to this banging noise.
that's so
Hopefully it's
funny.
not too loud. We have two APIs. So one is the kind of the vanilla swap that I was showing on Matcha, as well as a gasless version. So the gasless version provides a way for your end user to not have to hold the chain's native token in order to make the swap. So you can either include one or both in your application if you want.
Okay. Very cool. Oh yeah, and then I guess last question, I promise, before we get into the
Oh yeah,
meat and
no worries.
potatoes. Like what I think you listed like a few examples of swaps in action. What kind of like builders are we looking for that might be interested in this like dApps use cases? Um
Hmm. Yeah, so I think the range of applications that can integrate swapping capability is very large. So we've seen everything from with to portfolio managers to anything from as well as even like investment products. So we have
mm,
products that do index. So they create index funds, so DeFi specific index funds. And at the end of every month, they do a rebalancing. And so they just use, so rather than they like manually have to do it, they just call 0x API. They can swap into the tokens that they need to at the best prices that translates for their users. So there's that. We've seen even token communities that want to just add a swap widget onto their community page. We've seen that happen. Honestly, the range is so large. So we have in the documentation, the introduction to 0x, there's a section called "What can I build on 0x?" And here's just some that we've seen in the past. But again, the use cases are like are so vast that I think we kind of come up with we've come across new use cases
yeah.
almost every month.
That's super cool because I think like swaps for me as a non super familiar with swaps has always been only dexes. Um, but expanding, I was like, oh, DeFi index fund. I need that. Something smooth
Yeah.
brain for me. Okay, perfect, perfect.
Actually, oh yeah. So one more idea that came up recently was payments. So, for example, like teams that are paying out their employees. Maybe like the employee to receive their payment in a specific token. The team could help just automate that in the back.
Okay, cool. Um, so I guess that's kind of our brief introduction to 0x. Thank you so much for answering all of my questions, Jess. Um, I'm very excited because I guess you are one of the first, I guess, external parties to start posting on Level Up. So for those of you unfamiliar, this is kind of like, I guess, the Level Up. It's not a podcast. I don't know what to describe it as. Coding workshop. We do them usually every other week. But for those of you who don't know, levelup.xyz is a platform where we have tutorials, challenges, events like hackathons all posted for devs to learn about and also compete in. So thank you so much for bringing up the site. Again, like I said, it's levelup.xyz. Just put up some content around actually embedding swaps. And so this workshop is to go through it kind of verbally, visually for all the learners who aren't there, aren't the read through every single line kind of person. Yeah, I guess This is the part where I sit, and I let Jessica kind of take the reign from here.
All right. So yeah, so on Level Up, 0x has two pieces of content. So under the content tab, there's this first guide here. So this is, I'm going to walk through this with you guys, but just first high level. So this one here is walking through how to fetch those live prices using the swap API on Scroll. So later on, I'll walk through those steps. So how to fetch the price, how to set the token allowance, how to get the quote, and then finally sign and actually get a live transaction. And then also, secondly, there's a challenge. So for those who have gone through the first part, there's a 0x challenge to showcase more of the features that we think really help 0x Swap API stand out. So things like being able to display the breakdown of where the swap is going, being able to handle buy-sell token taxes. So this is super important more and more, especially as these like long tail tokens, these new tokens are coming out that have these nuances. So maybe you've swapped, I think, like Flocky before, or certain tokens that actually take a sale or buy tax and be able to preemptively show that to the user ahead of time. This is a really powerful functionality that no other API can show, just because the information is so fragmented. So like we're really excited to showcase that. And then lastly, be able to monetize by using swaps. So there's like two ways that you could monetize by using swapping API. So one is being able to set an affiliate link. So maybe you've built out a swapping widget that you think has really nice user experience, and every time and so people who really enjoy using it will be able to keep going to your app, and to subsidize every time they make a swap, maybe you take like 10 bips on it. So that is one way to monetize. A second way is taking something called a trade surplus, so positive slippage. So because we are working with very fluid systems, so slippage just means that when you're making the trade, sometimes the quote might deviate a little bit from what you're expecting, and it might slip in a positive manner. So you might be able to actually get more than what you were expecting, and in that way, you could give that to your users, take that for the application to continue building, and you can be able to choose what you do with that. Sorry, the construction is getting louder and louder. All right, so with that said, I'm going to hop back into the content piece, and we'll walk through how to use swap guide. So up front, this stuff is all things that we've talked about already, like how Swap uses smart order routing. And then we're going to hop down into this section here. So the first step is we're going to get actually, before I do that, you can actually see all these steps in action. So I have this code here. So if you go to this headless example in our 0x example, you can see the code, a whole script in this index.ts file. And if you go ahead and add the environment variables, so you'll just need an Ethereum private key that you can get from a wallet, some USDC, in this case, to trade. You can run this script and get a full printout of the API trade and the response from the block. Okay, so with that said, what I've done offline is clone this repo. Can I share my full screen
Yeah.
real fast? Okay, share this tab. Oops. Share this window here. Hopefully you can see this. It's a bit tight. Okay, so I'm gonna adjust this a little bit so we can see both pieces. Okay, so what I did here is, yeah, I went ahead and cloned the repo locally so we can make the adjustments and be able to like run it and see it locally. So yeah, first off, go ahead and sign up for a 0x account. You'll get an API key there, and then just make a local version of the environment file. So I have an environment example file here, but yeah, copy it, remove the example, and then add in your private key, your 0x API key, and then go ahead and get an HTTP transport URL. You can get this from Alchemy. For this example, we'll be using the one from Scroll. So I'm going to copy the one from Scroll, and then, oops. Yeah, so here I have the Alchemy dashboard open, and so we can find the scroll chain, the one for Scroll, and then you can just add that in here in your local environment file. But I'm not going to show you mine because my private key is in there, so I'm just going to keep that one there. So okay, so once you have that part set up, next we're going to go into the index file. So this is actually where the fun stuff happens. So up ahead, we're going to jump into this first section here. So being able to fetch the price. So the way that you fetch the price is it's pretty straightforward. So all you need are some required parameters, and then you're going to call this price URL. So here it's going to be specifically swap permit to and price. And for the pricing, we are required to have a chain ID, a sell token, a buy token, and a sell amount. You can also get more of this information in the API references that are linked down in the docs here if you need to, but I'll talk through it as we're going through it. So first off, the chain ID. So in the code right now, I'm using base, but let's actually switch over to Scroll while we're live coding. So this has been changed to base, to Scroll. So we're going to change all these over to Scroll, and this also allows you to see like how you can customize this example for specific chains. All right, so then now for sell token. So in this case, we're going to try swapping. Actually, what do I have in my wallet? I have some ETH. Scroll ETH. So I would like to know the contract. I need to know the contract address for this. So I'm going to get some, let's see, Ethereum. Oops. Oh, actually, man. Okay, so I think because, yeah. Okay, so this is an interesting example. So because, so for native tokens, you're actually going to need a very specific address. So there's this, like the screaming 0 example. I'm going to go to troubleshooting. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm updating this to match my contract address. Yeah, if you have any questions, also let me know as we're going along. So in this example here, what it's doing is it's going to update from Scroll. Sorry, we're going to try to sell. We're going to sell ETH for. Let's try selling it for WETH. So we have the contract address here already. So I'm going to update it here because that was previously the contract address for WETH on base. We want it on Scroll. So it's going to do that. And then I'm going to update this as well to match here. And then let's match the sell token address here as well. All right, and then sell amount, buy amount. All right, so this first part here is set up. So what we did was we created the price parameters, and then these are going to be added to this URL, and then concatenated with the header, it's going to be able to fetch the price for us. And if you want to test this locally, you could do that. So I'm going to hop over to HTTP Pi. Have you used HTTP Pi before, Emily?
No, I have not. So please teach me about it.
Okay, great. All right, so what we have here is the URL that we need for the price endpoint. I've set up the chain ID for scroll. I have a sell token, address, buy token, sell amount, and then an example taker. And if you make a query to this, oh no, the joys of live coding. Let's see. So we got an internal server error, which seems to be okay. There we go. Yeah, so sometimes that happens, and there is a section in the docs for if you do get an error, what to happen. Typically for 500s, we'll need to help troubleshoot that, but thankfully that got resolved. So what you see here is for someone who wants to trade this amount, this amount of sell token for this buy token, we give back this big JSON object. And so it gives you a bunch of information that you can use to display to your end user. So things like how much of that buy token they can get back from this trade, the fees, if there are any, things like the gas price, if a token allowance needs to be set, et cetera, et cetera. So like using this information, let's go back to the level up project here. All right, so yeah, what we got back was that information. So let me go back to the 6 steps of what it takes to use Swap API. So first so right now we've gotten the indicative price already. So the next we're going to set the token allowance. So this allows a third party. So in this case, the permit to contract to allow the settler contract to make the swap for us. And then from there, we can actually make the trade. So from there, we're going to fetch the quote and then sign the proper messages that allow us to be able to submit this transaction on chain. Yeah. Also, feel free to ask questions. I feel like I do better when it's more dynamic. If there's anything that is not making sense as I'm talking through it.
Hey.
All right, so yeah, next up, so we're going to have to set the token allowance here. So if we take a look at this code, what we see here is we're going to be using Vim. So Vim is a Web3 JSON package that allows us to do a lot of contract reading, writing, interaction capabilities very easily. And so first we'll need to initialize the contract. And so in this case, be able to get the permit to contract address, get the contract address of the token that we want to sell. And then from there, check if there's an allowance already. And if not, we're going to go ahead and set that. So let's go into the full code and see what that looks like here. All right, so step 2 is here. So checking if the taker has enough allowance for permit to make the trade for us. All right, so most of this has been set up. So we're saying, if we're going to try to make a request. We're going to simulate if there is an approval already. And then if not, we're going to go ahead and write an approval to this address. So we're going to allow permit to move this fund on our behalf. So I think that, yeah, that's actually all the adjustment that we need for this section of code. All right, so then now moving back to the third step here. So third step is we're going to be able to fetch the quote. And this is going to look very similar to the price query. It's just that in this case, instead of getting this price gave us back this kind of read-only version. So quote gives us back something that we can actually sign and submit onto the blockchain. So from here, the query params are almost identical. So again, we have the chain ID that we need. I'm going to zoom in, it's very tiny. The chain ID, sell token, buy token, sell amount, taker, and then the required headers here. So the API key, the version, and then we're gonna add those onto the fetch URL here. So we're gonna fetch from this URL here. All right, so if we go take a look back at the code here, close this up, let's give it more room. So from this third section here, we need to get the same information that we were using for price. So here we pretty much can just concatenate on the quote params onto what we had from the price parameters here. So that's what this section is here. And then this next line here where we're fetching, we're just going to take those parameters and then add them to this URL. So that should be able to help us get the quote response. And that quote response, if you recall, will look very similar. So I'm back in HTTP Pi. And then again, I'm using this quote URL. And then I've set up the ID, the sell token, buy token, sell amount taker. And then I'm going to make a request to it here. And again, the response back that we get is this big JSON object with all the information that we need. So given that, we're going to go back to our level up code and move through to the next portion. So from here, all right, so we figured out we got the quote that we want. Next, we're going to have to sign the message that's returned back to us. So yeah, so now that we have the quote, we're going to look for this permit to EIP 712 object that we received back from the quote. So let's go back to HTTP Pi. So we're going to look for this permit to object here. All right, so we see this permit to here, and then inside EIP, we see this EIP 712 object. So all we need to do is use this function. I think this is a Vim function that we can use to directly sign this information that we got back from the quote. So I'm going to go back to our full code sample here. So yeah, step number 4 is signing this object that's returned back. So yeah, here's just some setup ahead of time just to ensure that you do get this this object back, and then if you do, then we're just going to go ahead and sign it there. All right, so that's the 4th step. And then the 5th step is we're going to go ahead and, oops, I'm getting too click happy here. All right, so the 5th step here is we're going to go ahead and append the signature length and data to the transaction data. So within the object that was returned back, there's going to be some information that we're just going to do some simple appending. Yeah, so we can go ahead and just take a look at how that's done here. All right, so looking at the 5th step here, so appending signature length and signature data to the transaction.data. So yeah, so if the signature was successful up here and the object does return back this transaction.data. So let's see if it does. Let's see, transaction. All right, so here we'll see in this response that was returned back, we have a transaction.data. So this whole big block of call data is going to be important for the system, for the smart contract to know like what needs to be swapped. So this is not human readable, but we're going to have to be able to take this information and send it over. So yeah, once we confirm that we have that information, from here, so we're going to set up the transaction data, which is that giant block of call data. We're going to get the signature length, and then we're going to get the signature. And so these are things that, signature length is something that is, so we're going to be able to send those pieces over. So once you concatenate all that information, once we have that information like packaged up, we're going to get to the next and last step, which is be able to submit all that information over to the network. So the sixth and final step here is submitting this transaction with the permit to signature. So what this says here is, the final step is to, using all those required parameters that we've gathered in the steps above, we're going to send it. In this case, we're going to use WAGME, which is a React wrapper around Vim to send this transaction on chain. But you're welcome to use any Web3 library that you are comfortable using. So within this send transaction, there's some required pieces that we need. So things like the account address. So this is the address of the taker wallet that's making the trade. The gas information. So this information you can pull out from the quote here. The to information. So this is the contract address that is where the funds are getting sent to. Data. So this is this is using the transaction data information that we got, as well as be able to package up some information into it, and then the chain ID. So let's take a look back over at the full code. So here we have be able to submit the transaction with the permit to signature. So now that we have gotten the information that we needed from quote, and we have the signature that we got above, we're going to go into be able to sign the transaction. And so you'll see the parameters that I mentioned beforehand listed here. And you just add those in here. And then with that, it's going to take care of signing the transaction for you, and then return back. What it returns back is a raw hash. So this is the transaction hash that comes back once something happens on chain. And so actually we're going to be able to see the transaction go through. So I'm going to try doing this live. So right now we have it going to base scroll, but let's change it up to scroll scan, and then change it to .com. I'm just taking a look over how the syntax is set up here. So they have TX and then the transaction hash here. So that's what we have here. So we're going to TX and then the hash that we'll get back if this submission was successful. All right, so let me just do a double check to see if there's anything else that we needed to update here. Okay, so I think that should be everything. So we're going to go and be able to run this code. So I'm going to open up my terminal here. Terminal. Okay, so from here it says the code for this. Sorry, the running instructions here are. So it's going to install it. I'm going to use bun to do that. Pull up this terminal for you, and so then from here we can just go ahead and run index.ts. Oh, okay. Well, I got a little error here. Let's see what happened here. This example, the contract function decimals returned no data. Contract, this could be due to the following does not have the function decimals, the parameter passive function, or the contract is not a contract. Ah, I see. Okay. So I think this is because we are actually okay. So this is, I think this is because we're using a what's it called? Yes, this is why. So this is helpful information to know if you're doing this on your own. So this is because we are using the chain's native token here. So we're using this contract address, this screaming E, so it's like 0xEEE. But this is something that there's actually not. That's actually something that Web3 apps have created to be able to interact with native tokens. This is because native tokens on chains don't actually have an address. So if we go, say, to scroll scan, if you try to look up Ethereum, there's no contract address associated, but we need to be able to interact with it. So it's just become convention to use this screaming E, but because we need to read this contract address down later on, like when we're checking the token allowance, it can't actually read it from here. So this is a special case that like we'll need to handle separately. But I think in the case of time, like maybe it's better if we just use an address that we don't need to make some modifications for, because because essentially native tokens are not standard ERC20 tokens.
Okay, so the tutorial right now is not like a ETH to, it's not swapping ETH.
Correct. Yeah, the tutorial is swapping WETH, but it's just right now my current wallet only has ETH, so I was trying to like do something that we could do on the fly. But yeah, so this current example is using a standard ERC20 token that will work out of the box.
Docs include a version where they could look about how to do like handle the special case?
That's a great question. I think that's something that I'll need to double check on that one. I think there is a mention somewhere, but I don't recall if we have the full code built out for that yet. So I can look into it and then like share it offline.
Okay, awesome, cool.
Yeah. So that was walking through the content piece, and then again the challenge is just building upon that. If you want to take a look at that, so it's be able to take the information that you got from this big block of info that you get back from the quote response, and be able to parse out and be able to use that information, whether it's liquidity sources. So it's, if you want to take a look quickly at that here, I'm just looking through it's quite a bit of information. Actually, if you want, there's a quicker way to look at it. So if we go into the documentation and we're going into API references, we're going to swap. You can quickly see from here the response items that are returned back. So from here we can be able to see the routes. So this should be able to show you the list of contract addresses. So yeah, let's take a look here. So we have this sample response back, and you can see a breakdown of, for this trade, I went like 100% into Solidity. It's going through solidly. Sorry, it's going through like these two tokens. So there's this response item here is just packed with a bunch of really useful info. And so the challenge is helping parse through what information is inside and be able to use that information in your own application.
Mhm. Cool. Yes, exciting. So what we learned today was we built out some swapping, and we also built a house in the background. um,
I like that.
cool. I guess to cap everything off, is there any call to action that you would like to highlight? So obviously, like head over to levelup.xyz. Um, like follow the tutorial, sharpen up your skills so you can fill out the challenge, solve this open-ended problem. But from the 0x side, is there anything you guys want to announce or shill?
Hmm. Well, yeah, I'd like to talk. So we recently launched our 0x V2. So I'd love if people are looking into that and are able to, or sorry, looking to build and um, have a chance to take a look through our new pricing engine. So we went through, refashioned our routing, and we honestly have the best pricing across the board. So love to take a look, like play around with it, and then also on the Twitter side of things, definitely follow 0x Project, and then also if you are interested is to like see more of these routes, check out Matcha Routes. There's a whole Twitter feed where we show all these like beautiful Sankey diagrams that
Mm,
shows the complexity of the routes that are happening, and so it's a pretty fun Twitter page to follow, just to honestly see the complexity that's happening in the back, and
yeah,
then
this is cool. You're nerd siping all the DeFi devs.
yeah, and then yeah, if you're making trades yourself, definitely check out
Mhm.
Matcha.xyz, and then yeah, check out the code samples in the documentation. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We have like a support team that's always on demand, as well as you can find me at hey, it's Jalen on Twitter, and happy to help answer any questions as you're building.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much. We are basically at time, Jessica. So, always a pleasure and a joy learning about and working with 0x. You guys launched very recently. So,
Oh, we launched on Scroll recently. Yeah.
yeah, I think it was about probably a month ago, maybe. So, uh, exciting times for sure.
Mhm.
Um, okay, cool. So, I will let you go and we can say see you later, and I'm going to end the stream.